Good evening, everybody. My name is Darrin Kerr from FK Partners, and tonight we're with a special guest, Dr. Lisa Ponti from the Global Association of Risk Professionals. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Darrin, for having me.
So tonight we're going to be talking about the FRM certification. Some of you all may know about it, the Financial Risk Manager certification, and Lisa's going to talk to us a little bit more about the program. Who should be thinking about doing this program, what it entails, what's the curriculum, and how it can benefit you in your career. So she's prepared a brief presentation to walk you through a little bit about the FRM, but we also want to make sure that you bring your questions. Please feel free to type in your questions into the YouTube chat, and we'll be able to address them as we go through the presentation tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa now so that she can walk us through a little bit about the FRM program.
Thanks, Darrin. Well, welcome to everyone that's tuned in. I appreciate your time and your attention. For those of you who may not be familiar, the Global Association of Risk Professionals, also known as GARP, at our core, we're a membership association. And our mission is to advance the best practices within the risk management profession. We have currently over 150,000 members from around the globe who work in the field of risk management or are simply interested in the field of risk management. The development of the FRM, which is our premier designation, is guided by a committee comprised of senior risk professionals as well as academics and other industry experts to help ensure the curriculum's timeliness and its applicability. It is a professional certification. It is designed to help you in your job. Obtaining the FRM is sort of a unique alternative. It is entirely applied in nature. It's not a theoretical exercise. Some college courses you may take, maybe you remember, when will you ever use this? And if the professor was honest, they'd say never, but this is designed to be fully applied. It is designed for use in the industry. It's a very rigorous program. It has been benchmarked as being equivalent in rigor to a master's degree program. Once you earn your certification, you're not left alone. GARP provides all of our certified FRMs ample opportunity to keep their skills current, keep them abreast of current issues in the field. We have made a move this year, starting with our May 2021 exams, to a computer-based testing environment. We've also added an additional testing window in July, which will hopefully provide greater flexibility to our candidates in scheduling their exams and allowing them time to study, things of that nature. Regardless of changing to a computer-based test, it is still possible to complete both exams within 1 calendar year. The total cost is currently approximately $2,100 USD, and that would include the exam registration, study materials, everything. That's sort of an all-in figure for you. More detailed information on all of this can be found on our website, but if there are questions later, I'll be happy to take them. I do know for a fact that there is a computer-based testing site in São Paulo, located in the Soho office, Nova Leopoldina. And I'm sure that was probably said rather poorly with a bad American accent, but that is, we do have an exam site there. And you choose your day and time within the exam window, and slots will be available on a first come, first served basis.
We do have a question about the timing of the exams. Hobson has a question. Is it possible to take both part 1 and part 2 in the same year?
Yes. Now that we've moved to a computer-based test, part 1, there are 3 windows now for part 1. There are 2 weeks in May, 2 weeks in July, and 2 weeks in November. Part 2 in May is still going to be a pencil and paper exam, and it is being given on the 3rd Saturday of May, as our exams have historically been given. So technically, if you signed up for both exams in May, you could take part 1 early in the window before the May 15th exam and then sit for part 2. You could do that. If you wanted to wait and take both exams, separate, it's a lot of material. I'll be very honest with you, Darrin, to do all in one day. People do it. But it is a lot to cover. If you just simply wanted to get it done within a year, you could take part 1 in May, or part 2 or part 1 in July, and then take part 2 in December. There will be an exam window in December. So it can absolutely be done in a year.
Great. Yeah, I think we would not recommend as well the students to try to do, both parts in the same window.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Too much.
And the hitch is, and this is one of the reasons why I always caution people that want to try and do both, is that you can only pass part 2 if you've passed part 1. So let's say a candidate took the exam on May 10th, and then they won't have their test results yet, but they're going to sit on May 15th and take part 2. Well, we would grade part 1. If they pass part 1, then we'll grade part 2. If they don't pass part 1, we won't even look at their part 2 exam, and they must start over from the beginning. So again, unless you're supremely confident in your study abilities, or you currently work in risk management, again, I personally would recommend separating them and taking them in 2 different exam windows. But we do have people that have historically taken both when they were pencil and paper all on the same day, 8 hours.
That's intense. They're a little too intense, I think, for most of us.
Kind of what I would, I wouldn't say not, but I don't encourage it.
Okay, but to summarize, a candidate can do May or July part 1, get the result, and then have ample time to study for part 2 in the December window.
Sure, absolutely.
All these exams in the calendar year.
Absolutely. So just to give you a little more background, under the guidance of our FRM committee, which, as I mentioned, that we have risk practitioners and academics. That's how we developed the FRM. It's our graduate level certification, and what it is designed to do is assess a candidate's ability to measure and mitigate financial risk. We've been giving this exam since 1996, and in the 24 years since, 25 years going on, actually, more than 62,000 individuals have earned their FRM globally. Our exam registrations exceeded 81,000 in 2019. Unfortunately, I don't have really good numbers for 2020 because of all the postponements due to COVID-19 and things of that nature, but hopefully that'll all suss out and I'll be able to provide more updated information, soon. But we did have a lot of candidates in 2020 who are, taking their exam this year, actually.
we did administer exams here in Brazil in the second half.
Did
so
you? Good.
Were able to take in November, for example.
I'm really glad to hear that. We had to work very closely with local authorities to make sure, and we will continue to do so, even as a computer-based test. Obviously, we would be governed by local regulations regarding safety and distancing and all of that. And if any country were to go on a lockdown, obviously, we will support our candidates as best we possibly can. To be honest, our candidates in Hong Kong, they had been right through till November 2020 because of protests that had been going on at the end of 2019. But we managed to get them all taken care of. So we will work to support you. And so don't worry about anything of that nature. One thing I might want to point out for anybody who is looking to first, but it is the same exam everywhere. Unlike a college degree, for example, a university degree, passing the FRM signals to employers a mastery of a common body of knowledge. Whether you're an FRM in Brazil or Kazakhstan, you are studying the same curriculum. And so employers know exactly what it is you will know. Whereas, at the university level, your coursework might be different. And again, it's not as easy for an employer to understand what it is, the body of knowledge you have. We undertook to have the FRM benchmarked by the UK's National Recognition Information Centre against a number of different international education systems, and essentially it confirms the equivalency of the certification to a master's degree. So international employers, they may ask you, you hold this certification. What does that equal to? What does that mean? And so you can contact the UK NARIC on their website, and they will provide you with a certificate explaining what it is equivalent to. We have not yet had the FRM benchmarked in Latin America, but that is something that we could consider going forward. But we have in a number of other countries. As I mentioned also at the beginning, the FRM is definitely more focused than some other professional certifications, and certainly more focused than an academic degree. But the skills and knowledge that you develop still has many different applications. There's not just one career path for an FRM, not just one area where they work. You can apply the knowledge you gain from pursuing the FRM to any number of areas in finance, and that would depend on your personal interest and your particular skill sets. Obviously, most people probably think of banking as the first thing you think of. Oh, if I get my FRM, I'm going to work in banking, but it is not the only area where FRMs are employed. You could work in banking. There are components of non-financial risk where you may work for a company that is not a bank. The treasury function, any corporation has a treasury function. You have to be able to assess your firm's own funding requirements and manage their liquidity risk. If you want to work in investment management or compliance or the regulatory environment, there's a great many different areas where you could apply your knowledge. And so you don't have to feel like, oh, because I'm studying, because I'm pursuing the FRM, I'm locked into a particular career path. Why pursue the FRM? Risk management might not be the first thing you think of when you think of a career in finance. To a full disclosure, I used to teach finance at the collegiate level for years. And if I asked any of my students what's the first career they're going to think of, they're all going to think of trading and things of that nature. And that's perfectly fine. And risk management might not come to mind. But risk managers are currently quite in demand, and they look to be so for the foreseeable future. You can just take a look at 2020, the exogenous forces of the global pandemic, as well as climate change and things of this nature, have really highlighted the need for companies of all types to have staff that are schooled in the tenets of risk management. GARP is currently conducting a survey among our members and others in the industry regarding hiring and other trends globally. I'm hoping to have more detailed information on the survey results as they're coming in by the end of this first quarter. So when things of that nature become available, they will absolutely be, an executive summary will definitely be on our website. But they're still finalizing the gathering of the data, and then the analysis will be done, but it is definitely a field that's growing. Even as things become more automated, people still need to understand, well, what are the risks of having these things automated? Who created this model so a computer can do this job, things of that nature. So it can be quite an area of growth. As I mentioned, the G in GARP stands for global. And here I have a list of the top 20 employers of certified FRMs. As you can see, there's a lot of top international financial institutions as well as consulting firms. They are the top employers of FRMs, meaning they have the largest numbers, but they are certainly not the only firms that employ FRMs. As I said, regulatory agencies, regular corporations outside of finance have a need for risk management professionals. To learn more about jobs available, GARP does have a job on our website. There's a career center where you can look at jobs available. The positions may not necessarily require the FRM, but they are, if they're posted on our website, they're looking for that kind of skill set. So I often counsel people, if you start to pass the exams, you might leverage having taken the exam to obtain the job, things of that nature. But it's worth taking a look at, because you can also ascertain whether or not the career itself is of interest to you, to see what people in the field actually do. I downloaded a small snapshot here for the FRM in Brazil specifically. At the present time, we have 225 certified FRMs in country. The top 3 employers in Brazil for FRMs are in order: Credit Suisse, Petrobras, and the Santander Group. So they employ the most FRMs within Brazil. As you can see, our registration numbers are fairly, there's not a huge variation. May, just getting started, the exam window just opened. So hopefully this gives you an idea of the size of the market in Brazil. It's still a growing field, and not everyone that works in the industry has the certification. So it could be something that would make you stand out among other job applicants, to be very honest. As I mentioned, the FRM is a very applied undertaking. It is designed to provide people who work in risk management with the tools they're going to need to perform their jobs. One way we ensure this is by conducting a global practice analysis every 3 years. So we're actually starting our next one this year. In this endeavor, we survey practitioners from around the globe and ask them, what do people that work in your field need to know? What's important for people to know if they want to work in this field? And our last survey conducted received over 3,200 respondents from 125 different countries and territories around the world. And the respondents came from banks, consulting firms, asset management firms. And based on this survey, we've identified the top 10 tasks that risk managers actually do. Because I know when I speak of risk management, not everybody understands, what do people do? And that's the other reason why I suggest checking out our Career Center on our website. But you may be looking at, what is driving risk to our company? What are the causes? How is it connected across the firm? How do we communicate our findings with the stakeholders, the people that need to know about this? If I've created a model to measure risk or evaluate it, what are the results telling me? There's a lot of different things that risk managers do. And based on this, we've identified these topics, and we have designed a curriculum to help people be able to do these things. I apologize in advance. I can see that this slide has a typo. This is actually the 2021 curriculum. We intentionally made very few changes from 2020 in the event that anybody had to postpone their exam from 2020 into the 2021 calendar year. Because while, as you point out, Darrin, the exams were able to go forward, if a candidate contacted us and said they weren't comfortable sitting for the exam because of COVID issues or anything along those lines, we did allow them to defer. So we've tried to work with, again, support our candidates and minimize the amount of changes. But the certification itself consists of 2 4-hour exams. Part 1 is 100 multiple choice questions. You're given 4 hours to take it. And this is where we give you the knowledge of the tools of risk assessment. Okay, we take you through the foundations of risk management, a quantitative analysis. If you've taken, advanced statistics in college and thought you'd never look at it again, you're wrong. You'll see it here. Financial markets and products, and as well as valuation and risk models. And the percentages that I've given here are the approximate number of questions within the exam to give you an idea of how that's broken down. For part 2, the exam is only 80 questions, but you still get 4 hours to take the exam. And this is where you're going to apply the tools that you've learned about in part 1. And each domain within part 2 is a bit of a deeper dive into different areas, different facets of risk management, whether it's credit risk or market risk. We've tweaked our operational risk and resiliency to look at, disaster recovery, things of that nature, that kind of environment. And liquidity and treasury risk, that was actually a new section in 2020. And the reason it has been included was to reflect its increased importance within the profession. That is one of the things that our global practice analysis told us. They said we need to cover in more detail these topics, so we've added it to our curriculum. We have a small section on risk management and the investment management sector, as well as one in current issues in financial markets. And there we're looking at what is current, what is important now. And so, as I mentioned, part 1 is a computer-based test come May 2021, and some additional details on how to register and things of that nature can be found on the website. But again, if there are any questions in that regard, I am happy to answer them. Here's a little bit more of a detailed look at how the FRM curriculum addresses the areas of knowledge that people who work in the industry say are important. So these top 10 areas, these came out of our survey. What concepts are important for somebody to know? And each of these top 10 concepts can be mapped specifically to one of the learning domains within the Part 1 curriculum. So it's foundational in nature. It's providing you with the tools to become an effective risk manager. But again, we've asked what is important to know, and we've turned around and we said, okay, then here is our curriculum and here's where we're going to address those things, so that when you complete this certification, you know that you know what's important to the industry. The same thing goes for part 2 as well. These are the top 10 areas that were identified by people who work in industry as being important. And again, every single one of these areas is mapped to a section of our Part 2 curriculum, so that we will help you learn how to apply these tools and how they can be used as you start or move along in your career. Now, just to give you an illustration of exactly how the certification works. First step, pass part 1, pass part 2. Once you've passed your 2 exams, and you have 4 years, by the way, to pass the 2 exams. So while you may take them within a year, that is not a requirement. You have 4 years to pass both exams. So, life gets in the way sometimes. Perhaps you blow through part 1 really easily and you change jobs, you're busy, whatever, you do have some time. Once you've passed the exams, then to complete the certification, because again, it's a professional certification, you must submit evidence of 2 years of relevant work experience. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that you have to email us and tell us you are currently the Chief Risk Officer at Banco Santander. What we're looking for is evidence that you're working in the field, that you're using the concepts that you learned in pursuing the FRM to begin with. So there's not one set title, there's not one set kind of firm you have to work for, but it's a very holistic review of what is it you're doing and how does what you're doing relate to the certification. And once you've demonstrated that, you have earned your FRM designation, and you have that forever and ever and ever. While we recommend participation in our continuing professional development program, it is voluntary, and under no circumstances will we say you have to give back your designation because you didn't participate in CPD. But we provide the CPD program in order to allow you, and let me actually ping over to the next slide, but the CPD program is designed with our members in mind. Someone who sat for the FRM in 2005, for example, faces a very different marketplace today in 2021. I mean, even if you leave COVID and all that drama aside, just the evolution of the financial markets. And so we provide an avenue for our certifieds to stay current. And it's a really great indicator to your employer that you're committed to your position, that you're committed to being a lifelong learner, that you're interested in growing and, expanding your body of knowledge. And we try to accommodate our members by providing, opportunities for many different types of activities. It is not all conferences. I mean, now, post-COVID, so many conferences are, well, if not free, they're much less expensive. There's not the travel involved and things of that nature. But We provide access to readings or webinars, things that you could do on your own time at your own schedule to learn more about topics that are important to you and are important to your job. So again, while it is voluntary, it is something we strongly encourage, and it is something that we do to continue to support you as you move through your career. As you move up the ladder or progress within your firm, perhaps leadership development might be more important than when you first started out as an analyst, where your quantitative skills might be more important, and things of that nature. AI, machine learning, as that applies to finance. I mean, you know, an FRM from 10 years ago, what do they know about that? Nothing. I know we had a reading in 2020's curriculum. I don't think it's still in 2021's, but the financing of terrorism. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that we try to do to help people stay current and help them continue and develop throughout their career. Something else I will mention, another way that we support our community in your career in finance is through our growing chapter program. We have professional chapters around the world, and the upside of a global pandemic is that our events are being held virtually, not in person, so that individuals can access meetings anywhere. In addition to learning more about current issues facing the industry, these events can provide an opportunity to make valuable connections, to network with like-minded peers, or perhaps find a mentor who might be a little further ahead of you on the career ladder that might be able to help you. This aspect of career development is often overlooked. You know, for people, networking and things of that nature doesn't come easily to everyone, but it is an opportunity and it is so important. And you do not need to have your certification to be a member or to participate in many of our events. We do have some events that are you know, for our FRMs, but our chapter events and things of that nature, you do not need to have your certification to participate. In more recent chapter news, I've been informed that we have a professional chapter being installed in Lima, and another is planned in Mexico City for the third quarter, and a Sao Paulo chapter is envisioned for either the fourth quarter of 2021 or early 2022. So hopefully we'll be able to meet in person again someday. Excuse me, but if not, please know that these events are open to you. The only hurdle you have to come over is the time difference. So, but you would be welcome at any of our events. And I have a link here on the slide, but you can also find it on our website. And for more details about the FRM program, simply go to www.garp.org. The FRM page is right there. There's a drop-down menu, and you can learn all sorts of fun facts about us. And if there are any additional questions, Darrin, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Lisa. Let me check with Lucas, who's running our studio tonight. Lucas, do we have any questions that have come through in our chat? Okay, so Lisa, I have a question for you. In terms of the average age of candidates, do you have an idea as to when people generally start the FRM program?
I can tell you not by chronological age, but I can say that the typical FRM candidate has probably 3 to 5 years of work experience. It is a certification for someone looking to develop their career. I would hope that a chief risk officer or someone of a senior management level may have already earned their FRM, and if they haven't, they have a staff of people that are earning their FRM. But it is designed, it is designed for someone that's maybe already works in the broader industry, although not required. It is not a requirement to pursue it, but our typical candidate may have come out of university with a degree in finance or accounting or economics of that nature, and maybe they work in the financial industry, and suddenly find themselves in a risk-based role or working, tangentially to something that relates to risk, and then they will come and get the certification.
Mhm.
And to dovetail off your question, is the one that I often get asked most frequently is whether someone should pursue the FRM versus the CFA or CAIA or any other professional designation, to be honest. And people are usually afraid to ask me that, like they're going to insult me, and that's not the case at all, because the certification someone pursues is a very personal decision. And we do have a lot of our FRMs are also CFA charter holders. Some of them hold the CAIA designation as well. A lot of it will depend on where a person starts out in their career and where their interests lie. The CFA is a very broad curriculum, a great curriculum. I would never say anything negative about it. It's just, in my mind, it reminds me more of an MBA program. It covers a lot. It has a great deal of breadth. Whereas the FRM is more like what I would call a Master of Science, a specialized MS degree, where we are focused on risk management. And so if you know that that is an area that you are interested in, or it is an area that you are, suddenly seeing more of in your day-to-day job, then the FRM would be the one to pursue. If you're not sure, if you have, I don't know, people watching, if you're just coming out of university and you're not really sure where you want to go or what you want to do, maybe you stay general to start. But we do have a lot of people that I hear from them, they're like, I'm sitting for the CFA level 2 and FRM part 1. I'm like, wow, you need to chill or something. But it does happen, and it will depend on the individual and where their interests lie. But again, it is probably more for someone who's a little earlier on in their career would be the most appropriate.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. We see that with the CFA candidates as well. Usually a little young, not always, but generally.
Yeah, I mean,
first few years of their careers.
Exactly. And there's no degree requirement. So we often will also get, for part 1, we may get students who are still enrolled in their master's degree, or even honestly, seniors at the undergraduate level. I'm not sure, you might have a steeper learning curve on the quantitative matter if you're still at the undergraduate level. And the only thing I would caution about younger candidates is there is an overall time clock. You have 4 years to pass parts 1 and part 2. And then once you pass part 2, you have 5 years to get those 2 years of work experience. So it can actually be an ideal certification for someone who has very little experience, because they could leverage passing the exams to get that next job, and then use their experience there to complete the certification. So there is a little bit of time, but every once in a while I'll come across a candidate that started at the undergraduate level and then went to graduate school and hasn't gotten around to getting that job yet, and now they're hitting the clock. And so I caution people from starting too early.
One thing that was interesting that you mentioned, this designation is not just for people that work in finance. You mentioned a couple of banks when you talked about the leading employers here in Brazil, but you also mentioned Petrobras. I think, if you want to talk more generally about it, generally about employment opportunities globally, I think it's important for people listening to understand that this is not just for people that want to work in financial markets or in banking. It's for people that are interested in working pretty much in any organization, any larger organization that's going to require expertise in risk or a dedicated risk department. So
exactly. I mean, we start, obviously, we got our start in the financial markets, but I mean, any multinational corporation deals with things that are finance related. And so you could work for a Petrobras or another multinational corporation. And and require this skill set. You could work for a regulator. The consulting firms are also big employers because they go and audit and consult and work with companies that need these skills. And so that's also another area. So it's not just about banking. I wish I could have had a couple of people that hold the certification join me. Unfortunately, scheduling did not permit, but I could pull, 5 FRMs out, and they would have completely diverse jobs and work for different firms and things of that nature. So it would never hurt you to have this kind of a quantitative grounding. It would always come in handy. And the other thing too is that once you have the certification through CPD and just being a member or being involved, you learn more about all sorts of other facets of risk management as the field evolves. I mean, artificial intelligence, if people are interested in the data sciences, that kind of knowledge can be applied anywhere.
Yeah, that's certainly a trend that we're seeing. The kind of the combining of data science with finance. Another trend that we're seeing, and that you all at GARP are obviously well ahead of, would be sustainability and climate risk. I know you all launched last year a new certification, and maybe if you have a moment, you could share with us a little bit about.
I can talk a little bit about our program. We launched in January of 2020. Nothing says global pandemic like launching a new product. The Sustainability and Climate Risk Certificate. And basically, what I think is so interesting about this program is that it doesn't look at a business's impact on the climate. I mean, we all know that we're bad news, we're ruining the environment, we're all going to cause the earth to melt. That's pretty much been, done and dusted. What this program looks at and says, okay, given what is going on in the climate, if temperatures raise by the 3 percentage points, that are under the protocols and things of that nature, how is that going to impact my business? What risks are being posed there? And how can I mitigate those risks? Because, that's not necessarily something people have been thinking of. And actually, a good number of the people that sat for the SCR certificate last year have their FRM. So they're kind of building upon the FRM by including the sustainability portion of it. We do cover some of the science of it, because you have to understand how that works. But, there's sections on, stranded assets. I mean, I have, I'm a company, I have real estate holdings, I have a supply chain, how will that be impacted and things of that nature. Right. So it's a really interesting program that we don't really think is being covered elsewhere. As a certificate, not yet a certification, never know. It's one exam. It too is computer based, and there is no employment requirement to complete the certificate. If you pass the exam, you've completed it, you will earn your certificate. But hopefully as this grows in importance and becomes more embedded in industry, that's a possibility going forward. But we brought in people in finance, we brought in people, the climate people and things of that nature to kind of pull it all together. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I had a chance to look at the curriculum, and I think it's very interesting and very much a topic that's in the news, and it's not going away. It's here with us.
As long as we're all here.
As long as we're all here. Yeah, that's right. Very nice. So I'll check back here now with Lucas one more time, who's monitoring the YouTube channel. Lucas, do we have any more comments or questions that have come through? No. Okay. All right. Well, Lisa, I think we've been able to answer everything that's come through the chat, and additional questions that we kind of thought through.
No
just chatting
problem.
here. So
If anyone comes up with questions later, Darrin, or people that you encounter or reach out to you, obviously feel free to email me, and I'll be happy to help to the best of my ability. But there's plenty of information about the program on the website, but I know sometimes people are a little shy, but if questions do come up, you can certainly send them my way. I have no problem.
appreciate that.
Sure.
And here at FK Partners, just to make the audience aware, we do preparation courses for the FRM exams. We have a prep course starting in February, on February 18th, for the FRM Part 1, the May sitting of the exam. And then we'll have another course that'll begin at the very end of March or early April. We haven't finalized the dates yet for the July sitting of the Part 1 exam. We also have plans to do prep for the November sitting of Part 1, and then also Part 2, the December sitting of Part 2. So if anybody has interest in preparing for these exams, please get in contact with us. We have courses going. We've been doing FRM prep for a number of years now and have courses going through the year. We also have a long relationship with Kaplan Schweizer, and we use their prep material in the course. We also offer discounted pricing to our local candidates that would like to purchase the Kaplan material to do their preparation. So as a complement to the material that you all provide to the candidates that sign up for the exams.
That's new. That's new in 2020, Darrin. The materials come with the registration fee now for Part 1, not Part 2 yet, but we now in 2020 we had subject matter experts write the curriculum. We own that curriculum now. It's not curated like Part 2, so we are able to provide it with the exam registration, and then allow FK Partners to use the more detailed study notes and things of that nature
Good.
as a nice supplement.
Yeah, so a candidate then, just to dig into that a little bit more, a candidate for Part 1 would receive ebooks of the FRM or the GARP curriculum.
Yes, they would.
And in time, I would imagine you'll do something similar for Part 2.
That is the plan.
That is the plan. Okay. Yes. All right. Great. Now, yeah, that's very helpful. It's always good. I mean, I've been doing, we at FK, not just me, have been doing, the prep, the prep courses for these exams for a number of years, FRM, but also CFA, and with CFA, I do tell students that a lot of them will use the Kaplan material to study, but I do tell students, not to ignore the core curriculum from the actual organization that's putting out the exam. Definitely a great source.
That's where the questions come from.
Yeah, exactly.
The test questions come from the core curriculum.
Exactly. So, very, very important to study from that as well. But if anybody has any more questions for us, whether it's about the certifications, the FRM certification, or the SCR certificate Lisa was talking about at the end, the Sustainability and Climate Risk Certificate, please feel free to get in contact with us. If it's something that we are not able to answer, we'll certainly pass on to her to be able to provide the proper response. And if anybody has any interest in doing preparation for one of these exams, please get in contact with the team here. As I mentioned already, we're going to start the prep course for Part 1 in February for the May sitting of the exam. So how is that course structured, Darrin? Is it a weekly session? How is your course structured? I think they have classes. It's not just once a week. There's certain weeks that it's once a week, and other weeks they meet twice a week. The classes are live online. They're recorded, so students that are not able to attend, in the moment, they're actually going to be able to watch in the recording of the class after the fact, and We basically roll through the curriculum through mid-February through end of February, March, and early April. And then the month of April is devoted to doing question review exercise type classes. So we basically do a review using exercises over the final month. And by then, you're getting into the beginning of May, and the students will then have about a 10-day to 2-week window before the start of the actual exam dates for the May exams.
Yeah, that's good timing. Not too, you don't finish too far away from it, but you're not, like the day before either. That's
Yeah.
very good timing for that.
Our goal is approximately 2 weeks before the first date to finish up. So it gives them time to do their own kind of final review and to do some practice exams.
Cool.
All right. Well, Lisa, thanks again for your time and presentation and all your insights into the program and into the professionals that benefit from it. We really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in the near future.
No problem. Thank you, Darrin, very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And good night, everybody. Thanks for participating tonight.